At exactly 3:45 a.m., Ryan Frost Calloway got a call that jolted him upright. It was from a hospital, and the words, "your best friend's daughter," were all it took to tell him something was wrong. Her stepfather wasn't helping. He was part of the problem. 6 years earlier, Frost had stood at a funeral, beside a coffin draped in the American flag, and made a vow to a dying man. Now, that promise was being called in. So he did the only thing that made sense. He reached out to his motorcycle club. By sunrise, 71 bikers were fueled up and ready to ride. 520 miles if that's what it took to keep a promise carved into his soul. Dear viewer, before we begin, please write in the comments where you are watching from, and support us with a like and a subscribe. Frost didn't believe in coincidences anymore. Not since the war. Not since he buried Marcus. And definitely not when the phone rang at 3:45 on a Tuesday morning that reeked of grease, motor oil, and unresolved guilt. He had been elbow deep in the guts of a 1978 Harley-Davidson, the kind of job that keeps your hands dirty and your mind quiet, when his phone vibrated hard enough to skitter across the workbench. The caller ID made him freeze mid-turn of the wrench. Mercy General Hospital, Social Services. His heart dropped straight into the steel-toed boots he always wore. That area code hadn't lit up his screen since Marcus' funeral. Since he'd held the hand of a grieving 9-year-old girl with Marcus's eyes and promised her she'd never be alone. "Frost," he answered, his voice rough, like gravel in a rusted pipe. "Mr. Calloway," came a voice, young and tight with stress. "My name's Sophia Morales. I'm a social worker at Mercy General in Nebraska. I'm calling about Lila Ellison." The name struck like a fist to the gut. What happened? Frost was already moving, wiping his hands on his jeans, scanning the room for his keys. "Is she hurt?" "She's stable," Morales replied, but her hesitation told him everything. "But Mr. Calloway, she came in with injuries that..." She paused, papers shuffling. "We're classifying it as a domestic incident. Her stepfather says she fell. The injuries don't match his story. And Lila, she gave us your name. She said you promised her father you'd..." "I'm on my way," Frost said, already pulling on his boots. "Don't let anyone take her out of that hospital. No one, you hear me? But her stepfather, I don't care who he is." Frost's voice was low and heavy, carrying the weight of deserts and deathbeds. "Marcus Ellison died saving my life in Kandahar. Took a bullet that was meant for me. And with his last breath, he asked me to watch out for his little girl." Then softer, more human. "So please, MS. Morales, just keep her safe until I get there." A beat of silence. Then, "How fast can you get here?" Frost glanced at the clock, did the math, and answered with the kind of certainty that changes lives. 14 hours. "And thank you for calling." Not everyone would have. When the line went dead, Frost stood still in the quiet hum of his garage, surrounded by half-finished bikes and faded photos. One reflected back at him from a chrome mirror, a face weathered by time and war, a scar slicing from his eye to his jaw, a constant reminder of the day Marcus saved him. He opened the Thunderwolves MC group chat, a brotherhood of 66 riders spread across 3 states. These weren't hobbyists. They were veterans, misfits, ride-or-die types who showed up when it counted. His fingers hovered over the keyboard. This wasn't just another ride. This was dangerous. This was real. The kind of situation that could bring heat, headlines, and handcuffs. But then he remembered Lila in that black dress at the funeral, her small hand gripping his, whispering, "Uncle Frost, will you still visit me?" Before her mother's new husband, some cold-eyed cop, pulled her away. He started typing, "Lila needs us. Marcus's girl. Hospital in Nebraska. Domestic violence. Will's up at 5. Not a request. This is family." The replies rolled in like thunder. "Storm, I'm in. Phantom, for Marcus. Crow rolling. Inferno, let's ride." 10 minutes later, all 171 members had responded. Within 20, his phone buzzed with offers of gear, legal aid, fuel stops, whatever was needed. Frost looked around his garage one last time, at the unfinished motorcycles and the army photo of him and Marcus, arms slung over each other like they had the whole world ahead of them. No idea that one of them wouldn't make it home. "I got her, brother," Frost whispered, touching the frame. He grabbed his leather cut, black and worn, the Thunderwolves emblem stitched on the back. A wolf's head, snarling. Underneath it, loyal to the end. As the garage door rattled open and his Harley rumbled to life, the sound cracked across the sleeping neighborhood. In Nebraska, a 16-year-old black girl lay in a hospital bed, scared and hurting, thinking maybe no one was coming. She was wrong. 71 bikers were already riding, and the ride had just begun. This wasn't some dramatic gesture. It was real. The stakes were carved into bone. This was about saving a teenage girl. And 71 motorcycles stood ready, lined up like soldiers, engines rumbling low like an oncoming storm. 71 people who dropped everything the moment they got the call, because when family needed you, nothing else mattered. Frost stood at the head of the line, scanning the crew like a general before a march. There was Storm, 6'4", built like a brick wall, ran his own construction company and coached Little League when he wasn't riding. Next to him stood Crow, silver-haired and sharp-eyed, a grandmother 5 times over who'd ridden coast to coast more than once, still wearing her late husband's dog tags like armor. Phantom, known to the school system as Jamal, spent his weekdays teaching high school algebra and his weekends wearing the Thunderwolves patch. And Inferno, 2-time Marine veteran, now spending his days volunteering at the local VA clinic. These weren't outlaws, no matter what the news liked to suggest. These were working-class warriors, mechanics, nurses, teachers, contractors, folks with mortgages, kids, and lives rooted deep in their communities. But when they put on that patch, it meant something. It meant loyalty that didn't flinch. "Listen up," Frost's voice cut through the mechanical growl like steel on stone. Instantly, the rumble dropped to a collective purr. "We've got 520 miles ahead of us," he said. "If we stay tight and move smart, we'll hit Nebraska by late afternoon. 1 stop for fuel, 1 for food. No games, no noise. We ride clean, don't give any badge a reason to sniff around." "What's the plan when we get there?" Storm asked, arms folded over his chest like a shield. "We protect Lila," Frost replied, his voice low but fierce. "Whatever it takes." He paused, then added, "But we do it right. No fists, no threats. We don't hand anyone the ammo to paint us as the villains. Her stepfather's a cop. He'll be watching, waiting for one slip." Crow's voice sliced in, rough as gravel and twice as hard. "So what then? We just smile and let some uniformed bastard walk her out of there?" "No," Frost said, and there was fire behind his eyes now. "We stand our ground. Legally." A ripple of murmurs stirred the group. I called Cade. Heads turned. Everyone knew that name. Adrian Cade Cole, former Thunderwolf turned attorney, traded his leather for a law license years ago, but he never forgot who his people were. He was a legend in 3 states. A courtroom pit bull with a soft spot for justice and a long memory for debts. "He's meeting us at the hospital," Frost continued. "He's already filing paperwork. We do this by the book, but make no mistake, Lila doesn't leave that building with Crane. Not while any of us are still standing." The response was a low, rolling growl of agreement, fists raised, heads nodding. The kind of unity that didn't need shouting. As Frost turned to mount up, he caught Phantom frowning at his phone. "What's up?" he asked. Phantom looked up, eyes serious. "Did some digging on the stepdad, Mitchell Crane. Kept his name after marrying Lila's mom. On paper, he's squeaky clean. Decorated cop. 15 years on the force. Coaches youth football. Runs the neighborhood watch. Even volunteers at church." Frost's jaw tightened. The perfect mask. "There's more," Phantom said, voice dropping. "Lila's mom died 10 months ago. Single car crash. Clear day. No weather. No skid marks. Nothing." The air turned cold, even under the desert sun. "You think it was an accident?" Frost asked. "I don't think anything yet," Phantom replied. but I've got access to records. Let me do my thing. Frost nodded once. The situation had just escalated. This wasn't just a rescue. They were up against someone who understood how to manipulate the law, someone who knew how to bury the truth in red tape. "Mount up," he called out. The engines roared back to life like a beast awakening, a chorus of metal and gasoline that sent a shiver down the spines of everyone nearby. Frost took the lead, the others falling into formation behind him, their bikes slicing across the Arizona pavement like a steel river. The miles flew by, the desert stretching endlessly in every direction. For Frost, the rhythm of the ride brought a kind of clarity. The road melted his doubts away. He thought of Marcus, of promises made in blood and sand. He thought of Lila, just a kid back then, and how she needed them now more than ever. By noon, Nebraska's welcome sign passed under their wheels. By late afternoon, the low sun painted long shadows across the road, and Mercy General Hospital came into view. It started as a vibration, a low hum, like distant thunder on a clear day. People inside the hospital paused. Nurses stopped in their tracks. Patients turned to the windows, drawn by the sound. Even security reached for radios, unsure whether to call backup or just wait and see. Then they arrived. 71 motorcycles rolled in, chrome gleaming, engines growling in perfect synchronization. Frost led them into the lot with the precision of a military op. A raised fist, and like clockwork, the bikes peeled off into rows, filling the parking lot in neat formation. In less than 3 minutes, the engines silenced, leaving behind a void so abrupt it made your ears ring. 71 bikers stepped off their rides and stood still beside them, silent, waiting. Inside the hospital, the automatic doors slid open. Frost walked in first, alone. His boots struck the tile like a drumbeat. Conversation stopped. A young nurse behind the desk hovered over the panic button. He removed his sunglasses, revealing the scar that told 1,000 stories. "I'm here to see Lila Ellison," he said softly, but the words landed like stone. His voice was calm, steady, almost gentle. "My name's Ryan Calloway. A social worker, Sophia Morales, should be expecting me." The young nurse's throat bobbed as she swallowed. Her fingers hovered over the keyboard, eyes darting toward the security guard who'd suddenly appeared at her side. I just need to verify," she stammered. Before she could move, every head in the lobby turned. A woman stood near the elevator, clipboard hugged to her chest. Her badge read Sophia Morales. She was younger than Frost expected, early 30s maybe, with kind eyes hidden behind wire-rimmed glasses and a weariness that came from too many sleepless nights. "Ms. Morales," Frost said, crossing the lobby in 3 long strides. His voice softened. "Thank you for calling." Sophia's gaze flicked toward the parking lot through the glass doors. 71 motorcycles gleaming under the Nebraska sun, a silent wall of chrome and leather. "You brought quite a few people," she murmured. Frost's reply came quiet but firm. "I brought family." He leaned closer. "Where is she?" Sophia hesitated, then motioned toward the elevator. "4th floor, room 412. But Mr. Calloway, before you see her, we need to talk. There are complications." They rode up in silence, tension humming between them. When the elevator doors slid open, Frost saw 2 uniformed officers stationed in the hall. Their hands rested casually on their belts, but their eyes tracked every movement. One spoke into a radio, already alert. Sophia led Frost into a small consultation room and closed the door behind them. "Lila has a fractured wrist, 3 broken ribs, and deep bruising across her torso," she said quietly. Her professional tone cracked around the edges. "These aren't from a single fall, Mr. Calloway. We're talking long-term trauma. Months, maybe years." Frost's hands curled into fists. Where was everyone? Teachers, neighbors, someone had to see something. Sophia sighed. "Officer Crane is very respected. He's careful." Lila wore long sleeves, missed school often. There were always family emergencies, always need explanations. But yesterday, she came to class with visible bruises on her neck. Her teacher finally called it in. Crane brought her here himself, claimed she fell down the stairs, thought he could control the story. But she told the truth, Frost said. Sophia nodded. She whispered your name to the ER nurse. Said her father told her that if anything ever happened, to find Ryan Frost Calloway, that you'd promised. She met his eyes. The problem is, Crane has legal custody. Without concrete evidence or an active investigation, we can't keep her here. We'll have to release her today. Frost stared at her, disbelief hardening into fury. You're telling me I just rode 520 miles, and he can walk her out of here tonight? Unless we can get an emergency court order, Sophia said grimly. Yes. She pulled out her phone and turned the screen toward him. He's texted me 3 times already. Security notified him when your group arrived. He's on his way, with discharge paperwork and probably more officers. Frost started pacing, jaw tight, mind racing. Every possible outcome led to the same place, bad. If they tried to stop Crane, they'd be arrested. If they didn't, Lila might not live another week. Can I see her? He asked finally, voice rough. Sophia nodded. 5 minutes. That's all I can allow without parental consent. Room 412 was dim and quiet, curtains drawn against the afternoon light. The girl lying in the bed barely resembled the child from Marcus's funeral. Taller now, thinner. Her face older than 16 should ever look. But those eyes, those dark brown eyes, were Marcus's. Uncle Frost. Lila's voice cracked, disbelief cutting through exhaustion. You actually came? Frost stepped to her bedside, throat tight. I promised your dad, didn't I? That was all it took. The strong facade she'd been holding on to for years shattered. Tears streamed down her cheeks. He killed my mom, she whispered. I know he did. Nobody believes me. The words hit Frost like a bullet to the chest. Everything changed in that instant. Before he could respond, Sophia appeared in the doorway, pale. He's here, she said urgently. Crane just walked in, with 2 officers and a lawyer. Frost squeezed Lila's hand, a promise without words, and stepped into the hall. Through the window, he could see his crew still lined up in the parking lot, motionless and waiting. He pulled out his phone and sent a single text. Stay ready. The reply came seconds later. Copy. When Frost reached the lobby, he understood why Sophia looked so shaken. Officer Mitchell Crane stood in the center of the room like he owned it. 6 feet tall, pressed uniform sharp enough to cut, square jaw, perfect smile. The kind of man who looked born for photo ops and handshakes. Beside him stood 2 officers and a lawyer with a leather briefcase. Hospital security lingered nearby, unsure whose orders to follow. Ryan Calloway, Crane said, that politician's smile never touching his eyes. Heard about you. Marcus's old war buddy, right? Appreciate you checking in, but I've got it from here. Family business. Frost moved closer, measured, every step deliberate. Lila asked for me, he said evenly. That makes it my business. Crane's smile didn't waver. She's 16. Confused. She had an accident, got scared, called out for a familiar name. It happens. But I'm her legal guardian, and she's coming home with me tonight. Frost's voice stayed calm, but the steel underneath it was unmistakable. With a fractured wrist and 3 broken ribs? That's one hell of an accident. The lawyer stepped forward, adjusting his tie with practiced ease. Mr. Calloway, I'm Daniel Price, legal counsel for Officer Crane. Unless you have a legally recognized relationship with the child in question, I'll need you to step aside. My client has full custody and signed medical release forms from the attending staff. Frost tilted his head, voice steady but sharp. Funny thing about medical forms. Once a kid's over 14, they usually need to consent to treatment and discharge. Did anyone actually ask Lila what she wants? Crane's smile thinned into something forced. She's traumatized, not thinking straight. That's why parents make these decisions for their children. She's not your daughter, Frost said, sharper than he meant, but unmoving. She's Marcus Ellison's daughter. You just married her mother. A flicker of something crossed Crane's face. Cold, calculated. Then, quickly, it was gone. replaced by a well-worn expression of wounded dignity. My wife passed away 10 months ago. I've been raising Lila on my own, doing my best under incredibly difficult circumstances. He took a breath, then jabbed. And now here you are, with a gang. A motorcycle club, Frost corrected, evenly. A gang. Crane pressed, voice rising. Intimidating staff, interfering with a legal guardian's rights. I could have every last one of you arrested for harassment. The two officers flanking him subtly shifted, their hands drifting closer to their holsters. The tension in the room went taut. One wrong word, one raised voice, and it would all go sideways. Frost stood still, reading the moment like a battlefield. Then he noticed it. Crane kept checking his watch. Over and over. He was in a hurry, nervous beneath the polished exterior. That was a tell. How about this? Frost said slowly, his tone almost casual. Let's go ask Lila what she wants. She's 16, close enough to adulthood. No lawyers. No uniforms. Just you, me, and her. Crane's jaw clenched. I don't need permission to take my daughter home. Then you've got nothing to worry about, Frost replied. Unless you're afraid of her answer. Silence fell like a hammer. Every nurse, every clerk, every guard in the room had stopped pretending not to listen. Even Price looked uneasy now. Crane stepped in close, voice dropping to a whisper laced with venom. You have no idea who you're messing with. I've got friends in every courthouse in this state. I've buried bikers for less than a parking ticket. You want to fight? I'll bury you, and every one of your criminal buddies out there. Frost didn't flinch. We're not the ones who hurt her, he said quietly. And I think you know that. For just a second, Crane's polished mask cracked. Rage flashed through his eyes, undiluted and dangerous. Then the hospital's automatic doors hissed open. Someone call for a lawyer? Every head turned. Through the doors walked a man in a sharp, tailored three-piece suit, silver hair neatly styled, briefcase in hand. Behind him, visible through the glass, the Thunder Wolves had shifted. 68 bikers now stood shoulder to shoulder, forming a wall just outside the entrance. Adrian Cade Cole had arrived. He didn't enter. He arrived. The kind of man who didn't take space. He commanded it. Eyes tracked him as he crossed the lobby with unhurried confidence. He strode to Frost, set his briefcase down with a click, and extended a hand. Ryan. Been too long. Then, turning to Crane, his smile gleamed like a blade. Officer Crane, I presume. Adrian Cole, legal representation for Mr. Calloway and Miss Lila Ellison. Price stepped forward, bristling. This is highly irregular. The child already has legal representation through her guardian. Does she? Cade interrupted. He opened his briefcase and pulled out a document. Because right here, I've got a petition for emergency guardianship, filed just over an hour ago. It includes credible allegations of abuse and a request for an immediate protective order. Judge Evelyn Soto has agreed to hear the case tomorrow morning, 9:02 a.m. via secure video conference. A ripple of gasps and murmurs passed through the lobby. Crane's face flushed with fury. You can't do that. I can, Cade said smoothly. And I did. His voice echoed with the weight of courtrooms, verdicts, and battles won. Until that hearing takes place, Lila Ellison remains in protective custody at this facility. Any attempt to remove her will be viewed as a violation of a pending court order. Price snatched the document, eyes darting across the lines. His face darkened. This is a delay tactic. This is due process, Cade shot back. You know, something your client should be familiar with, given his badge. That's when Frost noticed them. News vans pulling into the lot. 1, 2, 5. Reporters stepped out, fixing makeup, prepping gear. Crane noticed, too. His smile stiffened into a grimace. You called the press, he hissed. I didn't have to. Cade gestured toward the windows. Outside, 71 motorcycles stood still and silent, chrome flashing in the sun. That's a story all by itself. The question is, what kind of story do you want told? As if on cue, a reporter and cameraman pushed through the doors, already rolling. Officer Crane, Care to comment on the allegations? Crane held up his hand, shifting gears into PR mode instantly. This is a private family matter, he said smoothly. Being exploited by individuals who have no legal claim and are interfering with lawful custody. My daughter is receiving excellent care, Crane announced, his voice carrying over the crowd as cameras flashed. I'm working closely with hospital administration to bring her home safely. A reporter called out from the back, her voice sharp. Is it true her injuries are consistent with abuse? Crane's expression hardened, just for an instant. My daughter had an accident, he replied, tone righteous, controlled. These allegations are unfounded and, frankly, hurtful. What the media should be reporting on, he continued, voice rising, is how a motorcycle gang has descended on a hospital to harass a grieving family. With respect, Officer Crane. Another reporter cut in, microphone thrust forward. Sources say the girl specifically asked for Ryan Calloway. Why would she do that if she felt safe at home? That landed. Just for a heartbeat. Crane's composure cracked. The mask slipped. Frost saw it, the flash of panic in his eyes before he quickly swallowed it back down. Cade leaned in close, voice low enough for only Frost to hear. We need to get ahead of this. You should speak. Frost grimaced. I'm not good with cameras. You don't need to be, Cade said, adjusting Frost's collar. You just need to be honest. Tell them why you're here. Keep it simple. Keep it human. Frost turned toward the window, looking out at his people. His family. Crow stood near the front line of bikes, despite the arthritis that made her wince every time she moved. Storm had left an unfinished construction site to be here. Phantom had probably called in sick to school, again. They'd all come because he'd asked them to. Because a promise mattered. He took a breath and stepped outside. The cameras pivoted immediately, microphones lunging forward like hunting dogs catching a scent. Voices clashed into a wall of noise. Questions, accusations, speculation. Frost raised one hand. The chaos quieted. My name's Ryan Calloway, he began, voice rough but grounded. 5 years ago, I served in Afghanistan with a man named Marcus Ellison. He saved my life, took a bullet meant for me. Before he died, he asked me to look after his daughter if anything ever happened. He paused, swallowing hard. 3 years ago, I stood by his coffin and made that promise. Last night, that little girl, who's not so little anymore, called for help. A reporter's voice broke through the quiet. Are you accusing Officer Crane of abuse? Frost shook his head slowly. I'm saying a child asked for help, and I came. His voice carried steady conviction. That's all. He let his gaze sweep across the lenses aimed at him. We're not here to cause trouble. We're not here to fight. We're here because family matters. Because promises matter. And because sometimes a kid's voice gets lost in the noise, and someone's got to make sure it's heard. Behind him, the Thunderwolves stood motionless, a silent wall of loyalty. The reporters were eating it up, typing, filming, posting. The story was already spreading. Inside the hospital, Crane watched from behind the glass, jaw tight. Frost caught the subtle movement of his hand slipping into his pocket, his phone. He was making a call, body language tense. Whatever he was planning, it was in motion. Kate appeared at Frost's side, grinning slightly. That was perfect. Social media's already blowing up. Hashtag promise kept is trending. Good. Frost muttered. I still locked on Crane. Because I think he's about to make his move. He was right. By nightfall, Mercy General had become a fortress divided. 2 armies, one sworn to protect the girl, the other to control her, circled each other in a battle of patience and will. Outside, the Thunderwolves set up camp in the parking lot. Folding chairs, coolers, sleeping bags. They weren't going anywhere. Crow organized food runs. Storm coordinated shifts, 2-hour watches to keep an eye on any incoming patrol cars. Phantom found a quiet corner and opened his laptop, fingers flying across the keys, digging into Crane's spast. Inside, Cade had turned a section of the hospital cafeteria into his command post. Papers, case files, legal briefs. spread across 3 tables like maps for a war no one wanted, but everyone knew was coming. Frost sat opposite him, a paper cup of bitter coffee cooling in his hands. "Crane's playing this smart," Cade said, running a highlighter over a paragraph of legal text. "He's already filed a counterpetition claiming you're unfit to be a guardian. Says you've got a criminal record." "I don't have a criminal record," Frost said flatly. "You do now," Cade replied, sliding a printout across the table. "Apparently, you were arrested for disorderly conduct back in 2019. Charges dropped, but it's in the system." Frost's jaw tightened. "Bar fight. Some college kid grabbed Crow. I stepped in. We handled it outside of court." "Convenient that Crane found it in 3 hours," Cade said, scribbling a note. "He's also claiming the Thunderwolves have known gang affiliations. He's building a narrative, painting you as dangerous criminals trying to kidnap a minor." Frost started, but Cade cut him off. "That's strategy," he said. "Crane's been a cop for 15 years. He knows how to frame a story. Right now, he's positioning himself as the noble father defending his daughter from the biker gang, trying to steal her away." Frost leaned forward, tension radiating off him. "So what's our move?" "We prove he's lying." Cade flipped to another document, tapping it with a pen. "I ran his financials. Since his wife's death, he's liquidated 3 investment accounts, taken a second mortgage, and moved roughly $180,000 into an offshore account in the Cayman Islands." Frost froze. "Why would he need that kind of money?" "That's what we're going to find out," Cade said. "Either he's planning to run, or he's paying someone to keep quiet. Either way, it smells like panic." Frost's mind flashed back to Lila's trembling voice. "He killed my mom." "The car accident," Frost said slowly. "We need those records." "Already requested," Cade replied. "We'll have them by morning." He leaned back, rubbing his temples. "But here's the problem. Even if we prove the money's dirty, even if we raise suspicion about her mother's death, it doesn't immediately prove Lila's in danger." Frost stared down at the table, the paper cup crumpling slightly in his grip. "Then we'll just have to make sure she's safe until it does." "Crane can claim those money transfers were personal investments," Cade said, scanning through the documents. "He'll argue that Lila's traumatized, confused, lashing out because she's grieving. It's a predictable defense." "So, we're back to square one," Frost muttered. "Not quite." Cade's phone buzzed. He glanced at the screen, eyebrows lifting as he read the message. Phantom just sent something interesting. He turned the phone toward Frost. "Apparently, Crane coached youth football for 3 years, until he quit suddenly last season. No official reason. I made some calls. 2 parents are willing to talk. Off the record. Their sons came home from practice with bruises. When they asked about it, Crane brushed it off as normal rough play. No one filed complaints. But parents remember, especially when something feels wrong." Frost's jaw tightened, his knuckles whitening. "He's been hurting kids for years." "Allegedly," Cade corrected, lawyer instincts kicking in. "But it helps establish a pattern. Between Lila's injuries, his financial mess, and the questions around the mother's death, we're starting to form a narrative." A soft knock interrupted them. Both men turned as Sophia Morales appeared in the doorway, looking pale and drained. "I need to show you something," she said, voice low. "But if anyone asks, you didn't get it from me." She handed over a manila folder. Inside were medical files, not Lila's, but her mother's, from the 3 years before she died. 2 broken fingers, a concussion, bruised ribs, each treated at different hospitals in different towns. She was running from him, Sophia whispered, eyes glistening. "Trying to get help without leaving a trail in one place. I cross-referenced the records myself. It's all there." Frost stared at the pages, fury rising like fire in his chest. Why didn't anyone see it? "Because he's careful," Sophia said bitterly. "Because he's respected. And because the system isn't built to catch people who know how to work it." Her voice cracked. "I'm risking my job giving you this, but that girl upstairs doesn't have anyone else." Cade was already snapping photos of every page with his phone. "This changes everything," he said, energized. If we prove the mother was systematically abused, we can argue Lila's in immediate danger. There's something else, Sophia added hesitantly. Crane requested Lila's medical records be sealed. Said it was to protect her privacy. But really, he's trying to control what the court sees. Can he do that? Frost asked. He already did, she said grimly. 2 hours ago. But, she glanced nervously toward the hallway. I made copies before the order was processed. Cade looked up from the table, eyes alight with purpose. Get some rest, Ryan. Tomorrow's hearing will be brutal. Crane's coming with everything. Character witnesses, colleagues, probably half the police department. Let him, Frost said, voice hard as iron. We've got the truth. Truth doesn't always win in court, Cade warned quietly, gathering the files into his briefcase. But it's one hell of a place to start. Outside, the first stars blinked over the hospital parking lot, where 70 bikers kept quiet watch under the glow of streetlights. Inside, a 16-year-old black girl slept fitfully, guarded by nurses who'd started, silently, to believe her. And somewhere in the dark, Officer Mitchell Crane made phone calls to people who owed him favors. The morning would bring reckoning. The next day, the hospital's conference room felt smaller than it was, crowded, air thick with tension. A laptop sat open at the center of the table, its camera facing the room like an unblinking eye of judgment. On screen, Judge Evelyn Soto adjusted her glasses and arranged a neat stack of papers before her. The faint hum of the video feed made the silence heavier. Frost sat beside Cade, uncomfortable in a borrowed dress shirt that felt tighter by the minute. Across from them, Crane looked picture-perfect. Pressed uniform, medals gleaming, expression calm and composed. His lawyer, Daniel Price, had a stack of affidavits and glowing character references thick enough to stop a bullet. Behind them, the back wall was lined with reporters, hospital staff, and 3 officers Crane had brought for moral support or intimidation. Outside the door, Storm and Crow stood guard, while the rest of the Thunderwolves waited in the parking lot, engines cold but hearts hot. Let's begin, Judge Soto said crisply. This is an emergency hearing regarding temporary guardianship of Lila Ellison, age 16. Mr. Price, you represent Officer Mitchell Crane? Yes, Your Honor, Price said smoothly. And I'd like to state for the record that this proceeding is highly irregular and entirely unnecessary. Officer Crane is a decorated officer with 15 years of impeccable service. Save the character witnesses for later, the judge interrupted coolly. Mr. Cole, you're petitioning for emergency guardianship on behalf of Mr. Calloway. Yes, Your Honor, Cade replied. Based on credible evidence of ongoing abuse and immediate danger to the minor. Crane's jaw flexed, but his demeanor didn't break. He looked like the picture of a man wronged, but too noble to show it. Let's see this evidence, Judge Soto said. What followed was 90 minutes of verbal warfare. Cade laid everything out. Lila's medical records, photos of her injuries, the pattern of her mother's unexplained accidents, the financial transfers, the sealed records request. Piece by piece, a portrait of control and violence began to take shape. Price fired back with polished efficiency, accident reports, police commendations, glowing testimonials from Crane's colleagues. A devoted father, they called him. A man of integrity. When Crane took the stand, his voice was heavy with sorrow. Your Honor, my stepdaughter is grieving. She lost her mother less than a year ago. She's angry, confused. I've done everything I can, therapy, counseling, but she keeps pushing me away. Then this man, he gestured toward Frost, shows up with a biker gang and tells her what she wants to hear. That none of this is her fault. That someone else is to blame. Cade rose, calm but unyielding. Mr. Calloway has known Lila her entire life, he said. He was her father's best friend and made a deathbed promise to protect her. Price's tone sharpened. A promise made 5 years ago to a dead man. The judge's pen stilled over her notepad, her expression unreadable. The battle lines were drawn. That doesn't give Mr. Calloway legal standing, nor does it prove Officer Crane is unfit to parent, Price objected. Frost watched Crane with narrowing eyes. The man was smooth, too smooth. Every response landed perfectly, emotions just measured enough to seem sincere. He wasn't reacting. He was performing. He'd rehearsed every word. Then Judge Soto raised her hand, her voice calm but firm. "I'd like to hear from Lila directly. Is she able to participate remotely?" Frost didn't miss the way Crane's face went blank. Carefully blank. "Your Honor," he said smoothly, "my daughter is traumatized, medicated." "She's awake," Sophia Morales interrupted from the back. "And she's requested to speak." Price sprang to his feet. "Your Honor, this could further harm an already traumatized minor." "This hearing is about her life," Judge Soto cut in. "If she's willing, we'll hear her." Two nurses wheeled Lila into the room. She looked smaller than Frost remembered, frail in a white hospital gown, casted wrist resting gently on her lap. But her eyes locked onto Crane like they were sights on a rifle. And Frost recognized that stare. It was the look of someone who had nothing left to lose. "Hello, Lila," the judge said softly. "You don't have to do this." "I want to." Lila's voice was quiet but unwavering. She didn't look at the judge. She looked straight at Crane. "I need to tell the truth before he erases it. Like he always does." Crane leaned forward, concern painted across his face. "Sweetheart, you're just confused." "He killed my mom," Lila said flatly. The room fell silent. "I don't have proof," she continued, "but I know she was going to leave him. I heard them fighting. She said she found something, some documents, and she was going to the police. The night before she died, he spent hours in the garage. The next day, her brakes failed. On a straight road. A car she drove every day." Crane started to speak, but Lila's voice rose, louder now, cracking at the edges. "And the cops who investigated her death? They were his friends. They believed everything he said. But I know what I saw." Price objected again. Grief, confusion, unsubstantiated claims. But Frost wasn't listening to him. He was watching Crane. And for the first time, the man's mask slipped. Just for a second. Cold. Flat. Real. "There's more," Lila said, pulling something from her pocket. A small USB drive. "Mom gave me this 3 days before she died. Told me to hide it. Said not to open it unless something happened to her. It's got bank records. Transfers. Proof he was stealing from the evidence locker. Selling it. That's where the money came from." Chaos erupted. Crane lunged forward, shouting, but 2 officers grabbed him before he could reach her. "That's a lie. She's making it up," he yelled, eyes wild. But his panic betrayed him. Judge Soto's gavel slammed down like a thunderclap. Officer Crane remained seated. "Mr. Cole, emergency guardianship granted to Mr. Calloway, effective immediately. A criminal investigation will begin at once." Crane turned his rage on Frost. This isn't over. But it was. The Nebraska sky glowed with the colors of closure: amber, crimson, gold. Lila stepped out of Mercy General Hospital with slow, careful steps. One arm in a cast, supported on either side by 2 nurses. Behind her walked Frost, carrying a single backpack, everything Lila had asked for from the house she'd never returned to. Cade followed, still on the phone, already coordinating with the DA's office, very interested in what was on that USB drive. But it was the sight outside that stopped Lila in her tracks. 71 motorcycles stood lined up along the hospital drive, chrome gleaming in perfect formation. Beside each bike stood a biker, silent, heads high, showing up not as muscle but as memory. A memory of a promise kept. Crow stepped forward first. Her face, lined by years, softened with warmth. She held out a black leather jacket, smaller, cut to fit a teenage girl. On the back, the Thunderwolves patch, a wolf protecting a pup, beneath the stitched words "family above all." "Every wolf needs a pack," Crow said gently, helping Lila slip it on, careful not to disturb her cast. "Welcome home, kid." Lila's eyes welled up. "But you don't even know me." "We know enough," Storm rumbled. His massive frame crouched slightly to adjust her collar. "You're Marcus Ellison's daughter. That makes you family. And we protect family." Frost stood back, watching it all, his throat tight. This was why he rode. Not for speed or image, not for rebellion, but for moments like this, when loyalty had weight, when promises lived, when scared kids realized they weren't alone anymore. Ready to ride? Frost asked, holding out his hand. Lila looked at him, at his scarred face, at the chrome corridor lined with strangers who had become her pack. Then she turned and looked at the hospital behind her, where, at that moment, Officer Mitchell Crane was being booked, fingerprinted, and processed, where his polished mask had finally, irreparably, shattered. Where are we going? She asked. For now? Arizona. My place has a guest room. Yours as long as you want it. Cade's filing to make it permanent, but it'll take some time. He hesitated, just for a second. Your dad wanted you safe. That's all that matters. Lila nodded slowly, wiping her eyes. Uncle Frost, thank you. For believing me, when nobody else would. Always, he said. She climbed carefully onto the back of his Harley. Her arms wrapped around his waist, tentative at first, then tighter, like someone holding on after nearly drowning. Frost looked ahead, the sun low, the road waiting. He raised his voice. All right, Thunderwolves. 71 engines ignited as one. A wave of sound and motion, steel and defiance, power and purpose. The hospital windows rattled. Car alarms chirped. Reporters shouted. And Lila Ellison rode away, not broken, but whole. Not silenced, but heard. Not alone, but home. But this wasn't a show of force. This time, it was a celebration. They pulled out slow and deliberate. Frost leading the pack, Lila riding pillion behind him, arms tight around his waist, heart still learning how to hope again. The formation reassembled like clockwork. A rolling shield of chrome and brotherhood stretched nearly half a mile down the highway. Storm and Crow rode up front, flanking Frost like sentinels. Phantom held the rear, watching for stragglers. The rest filled in the middle, tight, steady, unwavering. A wall of loyalty on two wheels. Cars pulled to the shoulder to watch them roll past. Some people filmed. Others waved. One or two even saluted. As the convoy hit the open highway, Lila leaned in closer against Frost's back. He felt the shift, the slight but unmistakable release of tension that had coiled around her for far too long. Months, maybe years. The wind tugged at their jackets. The desert sun dipped low, gilding the landscape in molten gold. And for the first time since that call jolted him awake at 3:45 a.m. Frost exhaled. They'd done it. Not perfectly. Not forever. Crane would stand trial. Yes, but with his badge and his connections, he'd likely find ways to soften the fall. The investigation into Lila's mother's death might drag on for years. There would be therapists, depositions, hard mornings, and harder memories. But here, now this moment, they'd kept a promise. They'd helped one girl take her voice back. They'd shown the world that family isn't always blood. Sometimes it's forged in war, strengthened by pain, sealed with action. By the time they crossed into Arizona, stars were winking into the night sky. The convoy rode on, engines purring steady, their headlights carving twin ribbons of light through the darkness. Somewhere ahead, Frost's garage waited. A guest room, a refuge, a new beginning for a girl who'd had too many endings. In his rearview mirror, Frost caught sight of Lila's face, lit soft by starlight. She was looking up and smiling. For the first time in what felt like forever, she was smiling. Behind them, the hospital had disappeared into distance. Behind them, Crane's polished lie of a life crumbled. Behind them, the nightmare closed its grip. Ahead, the road stretched wide and endless, full of uncertainty, yes, but also full of possibility. And the Thunderwolves? They rode into that darkness, 71 strong, carrying one girl towards something she'd almost forgotten how to believe in, a future. Thank you for watching. Subscribe me and hit the notification bell to not miss new stories. Bye.